You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. So then we pursue the things which make for peace and the building up of one another.
I think peacemaking begins with your relationships, with how you treat other people. And this is your friend and your family, and this is the stranger or the person that you think you disagree with.
I think it's absolutely essential that rather than starting with the issues, we start with relationships. And we recognize the common humanity of all of us. God's fingerprint is as much a part of me, as much a part of you, as much a part of Dana. We are all created in the image of God.
Sarah Roth and Carolyn Schrock-Schenk are both from Goshen, Indiana.
The Goshen community has always been really divided on U.S. involvement in Iraq. And you'd see that in the letters to the editor and in the Goshen News. They're frequent and often pretty heated.
One of those letters caught Carolyn's eye.
Dana wrote into the letter to the editor. She said, I'm the mother of a son who's currently stationed in Afghanistan. And she said, I am sick and tired of these pacifists who are writing these letters. She said, why can't they have some heart? And I read that letter, and it just, as the mother of two sons, it just hit me. And I just remember that sort of instant feeling of, I've got to make contact with this woman.
Carolyn picked up the phone and called Dana.
I said I wanted to understand why the letters were so troubling to her, why they bothered her so deeply. I said I'd really like to meet for coffee. And I said I would commit two things to you. I said one is that I will listen to you without interrupting and to hear what your perspective is. And that secondly, I would not give her my opinion or tell her what I believed unless she asked for it. She agreed immediately. She said, yeah, she said, I think that's a much better way to go about this.
Sarah's story began when a local newspaper printed a photo from a student vigil for peace that Sarah was involved in. In it, a person was holding a U.S. flag with a peace sign on it.
There was kind of this feeling of ill ease, I think, in the community about this issue. Lots of people were angry about it and sent more letters to the editor.
Sarah began making phone calls.
Just a quick phone call to explain what our intents were, to kind of clarify some points, even to apologize, to say that this was not, that offending anyone over the flag was not our intention at all. And also to make an effort to be in right relation with our neighbors, that we're not fighting each other.
The response was largely positive.
They were very grateful I called, actually. And kind and reasonable. And again, it's not like we came to an agreement, but there was an understanding and a clarification of what we actually were trying to convey on both sides.
Starting with relationships is absolutely essential because it helps, I think, sort of cement a foundation that we can then talk about the issues.
When Carolyn and Dana met, they spent the first hour getting to know each other.
By the time we got to where we were ready to talk about why we were together, we were friends. And it made talking about the issues feel very different. It wasn't nearly as gut-wrenching as I thought it was going to be. We talked about, and I asked her why it was so difficult, and she talked about what it was like to lose a son to the war. And what was even more amazing then is we talked about the upcoming, what was almost certain to be a war, and what was happening. We discovered we had some similarities even around the issue itself. I said there's been these back and forth letters now. I said, would you consider writing a letter together? She said, sure. It was published a couple weeks later, something like that, in the newspaper as a joint letter. And we wrote it together, and we said, gave a little bit of background about why this letter, and the fact that we had met for coffee, and the fact that people could talk over their differences, talk around their differences, talk about their differences without malice or hatred. It was possible, even though we weren't seeing it happen very much. Most of the time, people I hang around with and talk about these things with are people who are like-minded. And then I complain about not being able to understand the other side. Well, of course I don't understand the other side very well. I don't have enough close personal relationships with people who are on the other side where we can talk about those differences with each other.
Is peacemaking only for specifically trained experts, or can anyone be a peacemaker?